The Wild West isn't typically associated with Jewish settlers, yet early Jewish Americans lived there and made significant contributions. These are a few surprising ways that Jews impacted the American frontier. The 1800s saw a large influx of Jewish settlers in Western America. According to an 1878 survey by the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, the only census of its kind at the time, there were 230,257 Jews living in the United States, with 21,465 residing in 11 Western states and territories. According to certain historians, there were actually considerably more Jews in the West. Historian Mitchell Gelfand, for example, notes that 418 Jewish people were in Los Angeles at the time, a city that was still in its infancy when the census was conducted. The Arizona Territory was also left out, though modern scholars estimate that thousands of Jews lived in Tucson, Phoenix, Tombstone, and other towns during that era. Dr. John Eisner, a Mohel circumciser who emigrated from Austria to the American West, provides evidence of the existence of Jews in the American West. He traveled on horseback to circumcise 169 Jewish babies in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Nebraska between 1887 and 1905, performing Brit Milah on them all. Following her marriage to Jewish German-American pioneer Willie Spiegelberg in 1874, Flora Langerman of New York had her honeymoon traveling the Santa Fe Trail to their new residence in New Mexico. Flora documented her journey, offering a rare first-hand account of the American Wild West. At that time, trains only went as far west as the town of Los Animas. From there, Flora and Willie boarded stagecoaches. In Los Animas, Flora was startled when, as they registered at the town's new hotel, about 200 cowboys who had just returned from a roundup and were armed to the teeth rose as one, doffed their sombreros, and loudly greeted her. "Hello, lady, glad to see you," they shouted, and they truly meant it, as Flora was the first woman they had seen in months. Flora quickly adapted to life in Santa Fe, where she started a Jewish school in her home for the town's 8 Jewish children. In 1884, Willie Spiegelberg became Santa Fe's first mayor, a role he held for 2 years. In her memoirs, Flora recounted an incident involving her sister-in-law, Betty Spiegelberg, one of the few European women, and the only Jewish woman, living in Santa Fe during the American Civil War. One morning, Flora heard moaning and crying beneath her bedroom window. It was a slave named Emily who had been kidnapped by Confederate soldiers. After bringing Emily into the kitchen, Betty fed and cleaned her, gave her some fresh clothes, and called a doctor. For the following 30 years, Emily and another stolen slave from the same plantation were paid laborers thanks to the Spiegelbergs' purchase of their freedom. Soon later, the Spiegelbergs helped a brother and sister who were Native American orphans who had been abducted by Confederate forces. Betty and her husband Levi adopted the siblings and raised them as their own children. Jewish businessman Julius Meyer traded with Native American tribes in what is now Nebraska during the 1860s. In 1867, legend has it that Meyer was hunting buffalo when he was captured by the Sioux. He lived with the Sioux for several years, during which he learned their language along with 5 other Native American languages. Meyer was known as the curly-headed white chief with one tongue, referring to his honesty. In the end, he started representing Native Americans before Congress as an interpreter. Many Jewish merchants formed strong connections with local Native American tribes, often learning their languages. Moses Baru, for instance, owned a drugstore in Pendleton, Oregon, and was well known throughout the state for his deep friendship with the Umatilla Indians. He learned their language and served as an advisor and interpreter for the tribe. Wolf Kalisher, a native of Los Angeles, assisted Chief Manuel Olegario and had a close friendship with the Temecula tribe. Solomon Bebo took his friendship with local Native Americans even further, ultimately becoming a chief. Born in Germany to a traditional Jewish family, where his father was a cantor, Solomon set off for the New World with his brothers in 1869, eventually settling in Santa Fe. He began trading with the local Acoma tribe and became so close to them that he advocated for them in property disputes with the federal government. Solomon Bebo, who wed an Acoma woman, rose to become the tribe's head in 1885. As chief, Bebo implemented several changes, convincing the Acoma to relocate to a more accessible area, introducing advanced farming techniques, and founding a school for Acoma children. Solomon Bibo relocated his family to San Francisco after serving as chief in order to fully integrate them into the Jewish community and give his kids greater access to Jewish education and cultural activities. When gold was discovered in California in 1848, triggering the gold rush, people from all over the world flocked to the state. Loeb Strauss, a German Jewish immigrant, left his family's growing clothing business in New York to journey to San Francisco in 1853 and supply goods to the miners. Loeb, later known as Levi, founded a dry goods store, Levi Strauss & Co., where he sold a variety of essentials for miners, such as clothing, tents, and tools. In 1872, a customer named Jacob Davis, a tailor from Reno, Nevada, wrote to Strauss about a unique method he developed to reinforce trousers with metal rivets. Together, they patented the innovation and began producing durable cotton pants reinforced with copper rivets at the stress points, marking the birth of the first blue jeans. For decades, blue jeans were primarily seen as attire for Western laborers until the 1920s, when tourists began frequenting dude ranches in California and brought the rugged denim pants back with them. By World War II, blue jeans had gained such popularity that they were rationed during the war effort. To conserve thread, Levi Strauss & Co. was prohibited from stitching the iconic arc design onto their jeans' pockets, opting instead to paint it on. Levi Strauss was actively involved in San Francisco's inaugural synagogue and numerous civic organizations in his adopted hometown. Upon his death in 1902, Levi left behind no spouse or children. His will included substantial endowments to various institutions, including the Pacific Hebrew Orphan Asylum and Home, Hebrew Board of Relief, and 28 scholarships for the University of California, Berkeley, which still benefit students today. The gunfight at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881, remains one of the most renowned shootouts in the Wild West, pitting the ranching and rustling Clanton family against local businessmen and sheriffs, the Earp brothers. Among the few eyewitnesses was Josephine Sarah Marcus, a Jewish teenager who had run away with a theater troupe to the west, lived a life of adventure in California and Arizona, and eventually married Wyatt Earp. Josephine subsequently said that she heard the disturbance outside the OK Corral Ranch and that she ran outside and raced to the scene of the shootout, where 3 men lost their lives without even stopping for a bonnet. Wyatt Earp came across the street after spotting me. Josephine recalled, "My first thought was, oh my God, I'm missing my bonnet. What will they think?" Wyatt and Josephine were married for 50 years. Josephine's family had a spot in a Jewish cemetery in Colma, California, where Wyatt is buried despite not being Jewish. Born in Ireland in 1842, Jim Levy's parents immigrated to the New World and settled in Nevada, where young Jim initially worked as a miner. However, in 1871, his life took a different turn. Stepping in to break up a street fight, he challenged a local tough to a duel and emerged victorious. Jim soon abandoned mining to pursue a career as a professional gambler and gunslinger across the American West, residing in Cheyenne, Deadwood, Leadville, Tombstone, and Tucson. He reportedly engaged in and survived approximately 16 shootouts. On the night of June 5, 1882, while drinking and gambling at the Fashion Saloon in Tucson, Jim Levy, typically known for being armed, was unusually unarmed. As he exited the saloon in the early hours, he was ambushed by a local rival and fatally shot. The old cemetery in Tombstone, Arizona, earned the nickname Boot Hill because many of its residents, who were mostly gunslingers, were buried wearing the boots they died in. A current guide details the various causes of death among those buried in Boot Hill. Many were shot, hanged, or died in the frequent skirmishes typical of Wild West towns. Tombstone was notorious as a rough silver mining town, and it had a Jewish community among its residents. By 1881, Tombstone had a sufficient number of Jewish citizens for the establishment of the Tombstone Hebrew Association. One of the first actions of this new group was to designate a section of the town cemetery as a Jewish burial ground. In 1982, a local historian invited Israel Rubin, a visiting Jewish economist, to tour the neglected Jewish burial area. Judge C. Lawrence Huerta, a Yaqui Indian community leader from Tucson, joined them. Reuben performed the Kaddish at the site, and Judge Huerta was deeply moved by the experience. He resolved to restore the Jewish section of Boot Hill. In 1984, the Jewish section was formally rededicated. Today, a bowl of earth from Jerusalem is included on a memorial commemorating the site's Jewish pioneers and their Indian friends, signifying the link between the early Jewish settlers of Tombstone and their heritage. In the 1870s, the station master at the stagecoach station in Santa Fe recounted a tale to pioneer Flora Spiegelberg. One day during the early 1870s, a group of 4 stagecoach passengers arrived, 3 Americans and 1 German. After a short break, the station master noticed a group of Indians approaching the log cabin station. He urgently called for the passengers to return to their stagecoach. The Americans quickly obeyed, but the German passenger was missing. At last, peering behind the log cabin, the station master witnessed the German passenger quietly praying in Hebrew, wearing a black skull cap and a prayer shawl draped around his neck holding a prayer book. The station master urgently warned of approaching danger. Despite the passenger's anxiousness, the Jewish traveler serenely advised, "Have faith in God, and He will guide us safely to our destination." Remarkably, the station master recounted, the Indians did not attack, and the stagecoach departed without incident.